Hello guys, today I will be doing a junior code review about Laravel APIs based on the code written by my junior developer students that I'm mentoring here in Lithuanian community locally. So this is an example of API endpoint request, and we will be dealing with those. So the task was pretty simple. The task that I have given to my students was this: to create a public API from already existing project that we did previously with the students, database of books, and create only two public API endpoints, list of books and books single view. A few tricky parts here, so to show different fields in different endpoints, so add description only on the show book, not in the index. Also pagination, only confirmed books, and also relationships should be transformed to comma separated, like authors are belongs to many and genres are belongs to many, and they should be returned as a string comma separated. And they should have used Laravel API resources for this. So 5 students completed the task successfully, and let's review their code, and I will add my opinion on what can be improved or what is the best way, in my opinion, to perform certain task. And I will divide the video by topics. Topic number 1 is where to put API routes and how should they look. So first thing you should avoid is putting API routes in routes web PHP file, like in this case. Routes for API should be in the separate file routes API PHP. It's not a very strict rule, so this thing would still work, but to separate the concerns, the readable code for the web and for the API, which could be consumed by mobile application or whatever software, it's a good standard to put your API routes in routes API. And let's take a look at examples of students how they did it. So first example is route resource /v1/books. And I specifically asked them to do v1, and I will tell you about it in a minute. Another example is route prefix with route get and get book ID. A little longer, I would probably use resource controller for that, but still works. Next, route resource for the books. This is the shortest way so far, but my favorite one is this one, route API resource. There's a separate API resource, which means that it would contain create form and edit form, so only 5 methods. And even after specifying the controller, the developer specifies that it will implement only 2 methods, index and show. Out of all those options you've seen so far, I would vote for this one-liner in routes API PHP. Next, I want to discuss the prefix. So /API/v1 should be the prefix for this task, and /API comes automatically if you use routes API PHP. That's another reason. So if you put that here in routes web, you need to specifically specify API. If you put it in routes API, that prefix is automatic. So /API is automatic, but /v1 isn't. And that v1 is needed for the future, so if your project survives long enough that you have version 2, then you would have separate version 2 prefix with their own controllers without deprecating or deleting version 1, so both versions would be active and maintained. So to set that prefix, let's see how it's done by different developers. One developer has resource v1 books directly here. Another option is prefix v1 books, also works. But here, for example, there's no prefix and there's no v1 here, and in this example there's no API v1, so where is it hidden? We can take a look at the file called app providers route service provider in Laravel, and in the boot method it registers 2 route groups, routes web and routes API, and in here you may change the prefix to whatever you want for all the routes that would be registered in routes API PHP. So by default, this file, the provider, looks like this, but another developer changed it from API to API v1, and then they don't need to register route group or route prefix in the routes API file. It is done directly in service provider. The next thing I want to discuss is transform the result of API endpoint, and specifically authors as string comma separated and genres as string comma separated. Both things are many-to-many relationship in the database. And let's see how different students perform that transformation. So first in Postman, I will show you how it is returned. So authors, comma separated. And so you would understand one student didn't perform that, so they returned authors as they are. So this is how it looks in the database, relationship authors and then name for every author. But for those who did perform the transformation, it should have looked like this. So comma separated here. Or another example is for a specific book, 75, comma separated authors. Or if you take a look at the list, it is also comma separated. Or in case of one genre, it is just one genre without any comma. So how does it look in the code? And I will show you 4 examples, from the longest one to the shortest one. So this is one book resource. In toArray method, there is authors and genres being returned, and those strings are populated like this. For each genres and for each authors, adding to the same string with comma or not comma if it's not the last. Let's take a look at another option. Also book resource, and this author list and this genre list. What does it mean? It is a method in the model author list collection, and it does pretty similar things. So for each of the collection, just adds to the array and then implode in one line. So a bit shorter, and it works with the collection of authors. And there were 2 students that made it really elegantly. So this is probably the shortest way to do that, by using Laravel collection method implode with comma. So implode category name or implode author name. Of course, this code is a bit mess with localhost left here and with comments left here and not formatted well, but this part is done well. And a similar situation, similar, better structured code, so it's the same thing, implode and implode. Though be careful here, if you're loading the list, if you're doing this authors, make sure that you're loading that with eager loading from the controller. So this one is a bad example because it will execute query for every author or every genre for every book. And this is a good example, book with authors genres, and then they are accessible within the same result with only 3 queries. For the book, for all the authors, and all the genres that are actually needed. A quick note about using route model binding in the show method. In this case, as you can see, it's not used. It's loaded book with from the database because there is approved condition, which is scope in this case. In other cases, students did use route model binding like this, and both things work. But do you see what is wrong in this case? In the list of books, you have where is approved true. In the show book, someone can view the unapproved book. So if you are using route model binding, but you have a separate condition, what I would do here is before the return, I would add if book is approved false, abort 404. So if you are using route model binding, it's a cool thing, but beware of separate conditions that could be additionally added to the route model binding. And the part that was most interesting for me personally, how students would implement different fields within the same API resource. So in the list, there's no description field listed, but for the book, description field should be added, but using the same Laravel API resource. And let's see how students did that. I will show you one totally over-engineered way, a bit too complex, and then 2 good ways. So this is this when, and then there's condition self-mode book, then add this description. What is self-mode book? There is a setMode static function on the API resource created, and it is called, if you take a look at the controller, in the index setMode books, which means plural book, which means description wouldn't be fired, wouldn't be added. So create a separate function inside of that API resource is kind of an over-engineering to me. There are simple ways. One of them is having this when, and then work with the request. Request is accessible within toArray function, and you can have any conditions here. So if there is a request book variable passed, then we return the description. Also, another version of that is this merge when you need to add more than one field. For example, when there is a request book, you may add more fields here than just description, maybe some additional discount or something. And another way actually is having this when appended. When appended the description, we show that, and it is appended in the controller. If you take a look at the controller, there's new book resource, book, but also book appended description. This is also a valid way, probably a bit longer. Merge when is more elegant in my opinion, but that would also work. So this was a quick review of 5 students performing identical tasks, but in different ways. Another proof that there is no one way to perform something in Laravel or in programming in general. And I hope it broadened your mind about API, about simple API creation, public APIs. If you want to learn more about APIs in general, I have a separate course on Teachable, where I go a bit deeper into all those topics that I've mentioned in this video practically. So you can enroll in that course or any of my courses on Teachable platform. And see you guys in other videos.